Pennsylvania, the Keystone State. Yet could it also be the keystone to unlocking many of the unknown mysteries? In this show, we'll be discussing all of the haunts, local legends, and unknown phenomena that have happened right here in our very own backyard. I'm your host, Matt Boyer, a senior investigator in the paranormal field.
And I'm Jacob Bacasa, a junior investigator.
And this is Unearthing the Unknown. Hey everybody, well, we're back.
We are back. We're back once again, live from the digital void, as I like to call it.
I don't know if this is the digital void. We're definitely in some kind of void right now. I would rather say that we are in the investigator of paranormal void, because we're in between the human plane and the paranormal plane. I get where you're coming from with the digital, just because all they hear right now is our voice. And yeah, I don't know.
You want to challenge me on that? Okay, you know what? Fine.
We'll let it
slide. We'll let it slide. We'll let it slide.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine.
Jake and I have been talking about this, and I think we both kind of confused each other talking about this coming in today. But yeah, we are once again back to do, as Jake would say, our mini-series.
This is sort of
sub-series,
like
yeah, side series. Tonight we will not be telling a story of another urban legend or haunt or mystery. Instead, once again, guys, we are back to talk a little bit more about going in depth to the paranormal field, working in it, and a lot of different things. So in the last episode that we did like this, we talked about the skepticism. We were going to do kind of like all the different forms of paranormal, but changed that up just because Jacob's the skeptic here.
Well, I mean, you got very wrapped up in the skepticism side,
Well,
which I'll admit was a good place to begin because, again, like I've doubted I've
And see, it does take up a full chapter that I was telling you about in the other side book that I was taught using. So yeah, I think that was a good idea, even though that it's like one of the later chapters. I think that was a good place to start off with.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've gone through some of the chapters here, guys, and we're not sticking with the book, so it's not like, oh, chapter 1, talking about this. We're doing first, then we're moving. No, instead, we're kind of bouncing around because really that's how I was taught with is you got to learn some things.
I mean, I would imagine we go in order of what makes most sense to talk about.
And see, that's how Holly actually taught me to go through the book. She was telling me which chapters I should read when. So start with this chapter, then move on to this one. So you could start with chapter 5 and go up to chapter 14, then you're down at chapter 2. So I would bounce around as she would tell me to because that helped me better understand and get the knowledge that I needed for everything rather than just
Well, if
reading.
it worked for you, it hopefully will work for all of us. So let's get on to it, shall we?
Yeah. So for tonight, we will be telling we'll actually be talking about all the different kinds of haunts rather than what we were planning on doing last time we did this. We're actually going to talk about all the different kinds of hauntings. So first off,
As in types.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I just wanted to put that on the record.
And this one will be a longer episode because there is a lot of different kinds of spirits and hauntings and everything along those.
Well, I made the joke in the last episode about the AA battery ghosts.
So that's the classification. We're not getting into that tonight.
Oh, scratch that entirely then.
Yeah. No, so
So
we have a classification. I don't know if all paranormal investigators use that, but that's
okay.
Holly taught me that we were using this kind of like CBA, AA. I'm not going to say AAA to make you happy here.
Well, no. And this kind of leads into my next question. Given that, if we're not going to go into that, if we do talk about like the classification of hauntings, so to speak,
Yeah.
is it more or less than the classifications that you have in terms of numbers?
Well, it all depends on how much energy and how much activity there is. That's what defines your classification. So
Wait. Is the number of hauntings greater than the number of classifications? That's what I'm asking.
ask that question again after I've kind of gone through everything, because I might answer it for you. It was just a weird way that you asked it, but
That was fair.
Yeah.
I had
So
to think about it
let me
again.
actually get into this, and then we will kind of circle back to that.
Put a pin in that, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. So first off, one thing that is a very big misconception with the paranormal, Jake, is that people do not. They don't always. Some do, some don't. And this is something that I really need to point out. Most investigators and the paranormal differentiate the idea of a spirit versus a ghost. They're usually interchangeable for the most part with people, but we actually have different meanings and beliefs for each of them. Okay?
Okay.
So let's first start off with the idea of a spirit. So when we die, many will believe that our state of being, our soul, will cross over to another place or dimension or plane. A lot of people, very religious, they would say, oh, this is the afterlife. This is heaven.
Whatever,
Yeah.
those
For
types of things.
for those of you that are like part of Heaven's Gate or something, this is the spaceship.
Wow, I was not expecting a Heaven's Gate joke to come out tonight. I'll give you that.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
If you know, you know, ladies.
Yeah,
and
I
gentlemen.
don't-
That's all I'll say.
I don't know where I kind of came up with that. That was on the fly.
Clearly.
Yeah, but pretty much, yeah, this is the next place. So whatever the term might be, heaven, afterlife, spaceship.
However you define it, I
Yeah,
guess.
exactly. So whatever you choose to call it, many believe that this is the true destination for our being when it passes out of this life and goes into the next. And for most of us, that is what happens. When someone successfully crosses over to the other side, as we would say, we might refer to that person as what's known as a free spirit. So they are no longer confined to this world alone, Jake. And it's believed that the free spirit may actually come back to our plane to visit friends, family from time to time, especially in moments of crisis, especially. Which that's another thing, is some people would believe that spirit does not have the ability to cross back over. As far as I'm aware of, if you are a free spirit, you have that ability, one way or another. You can cross from...
Could that be in the form of and this might be broaching a subject that is a little too esoteric for this show, or maybe to your knowledge, angel numbers and the like? How people have they see repeating numbers, 330, 333, 444, a repeating series of numbers like that, because according to what I've read on that topic, it's trying to get some communication. I don't know if you know anything about that, or if I'm
Well, that will come in a little bit later when we start talking about spirit communication. But what I mean by this is...
Okay, put another pen in that.
Yeah, I'm actually going to give a great example of this.
Okay.
And this is one thing that I personally believe in, and I think that this is a very nice idea. A lot of people, when they think about a spirit or something like that coming back to this world, they think of it in a negative way. Oh, a spirit is still here. Oh, the spirit realm or the paranormal realm, they're coming back to haunt us. No. Not all hauntings are bad. Not all spirits returning to this earth are bad. And why I say that is, again, like I said, I'm Roman Catholic. We believe all the time of angels being around. And no, I'm not talking about the movie Angels in the Outfield, which is a good movie, though. I'm actually referring to that multiple people have talked about their guardian angel being there to protect them, being there for them. Or another thing is, and this is the one that I really believe in, and this is the one that I was kind of mentioning, cardinals. Cardinal birds. So there is a belief that cardinals are actually family members or people that you were close with coming back in a form that we are able to see to be with us. And I know that's kind of cheesy at first, but
Well,
it wasn't the best way of me kind of describing
it's an
it.
interpretation I was unaware of. So
Really? I was kind of thinking that you would have heard of that.
not to sound snarky or anything, but where would I have heard that?
I do not know.
I know
Anyhow.
all I know is that cardinals are very aggressive birds. Or are those Blue Jays?
Yeah, well, so
I don't know.
this is some folklore and Christian faith that people believe seeing a cardinal is a sign from heaven or a visit of a departed loved one. And a lot of that comes from the symbolism of cardinals being hope and joy, especially like during the winter, comfort, and remind people of loved ones who have passed away, as well as like new beginnings in the spring after a harsh winter. And cardinals are also considered to be spiritual messengers and carriers of the soul. So, right there, that they are the carriers of the soul is one way where people think, oh, it's not, it's somebody else's soul. And why I really like this idea, my one grandpa, he loved cardinals, and I like to think maybe that's one of the reasons why, besides for, they're just a pretty bird. Uh, though I like to think back in 2018, my grandma passed away of cancer. And right outside of her bedroom window, we had a bird feeder so she could see the birds. And when she was having very bad days, when, the pain or whatever, she used to have panic attacks too. When those would happen, cardinals would always show up right around like when they would start or when she was in the most pain and everything.
Yeah.
And she would settle down very easily after that would happen. Now, I kind of told you in the episode with telling my first investigation, my family went through a lot, and I've told you this apart from this, my family went through a lot in 2018 with a lot of passings.
Loss and everything.
Yeah. So my grandma got a very heavy dose of that. And we have had a lot of unfortunate passings on that side of the family, in the immediate family for my grandma. And here we always said that the cardinals, depending on how many, were different people. One of my former neighbors, who was very close with my grandma, he was a Methodist church pastor. He had passed away in January of 2018. So we would say, that could be him. My grandpa Jerry, my grandma's husband, passed away in 2003. So we'd say, that's him coming back. Or that's my Uncle John, who passed away back in the 90s. Or it's my cousin Alyssa, my grandma's granddaughter, who passed away in 2013. Maybe it was her dad or her sister, my great aunt Marcy, who died when she was very young.
Yeah, I think we see the point, yeah.
Yeah, so we always kind of had that. What was also another reason why I believe this is actually when my sister got married, right when my sister was coming down the aisle, we were at this real nice place over in the Butler area. It was an outdoor venue. I forget the name of it. But right when my sister came down the aisle, guess what happened? There was a wire over the area going through the trees there, and a couple cardinals flew down and sat there, watched the entire service, and then as soon as the service was over, the cardinals flew away.
I was about to say, it's got something to do with cardinals.
So we like to think that was a few of our family members, whether that was my grandma and grandpa, and I think there were like 4 or 5 of them. So as soon as we saw them, we thought, that's kind of a nice thing, is if this is true, that cardinals are departed ones coming back to Earth, that my grandparents got to see my sister walk down the aisle, or, other family members got to see that. It's something that's kind of sweet, and it warms the heart.
Yeah.
So,
with that out of the way.
Yeah, so free spirits, we got way off topic there, talking cardinals for a hot minute. But just getting back to this, free spirits can come back. They're not trapped in the next world from this one. They can come back. So that's a great thing. Now, and like I said, they come back in times of crisis, kind of go back, like I said, when my grandma was not on her best day, the cardinals showed up. But there's also many reports of people, even on their deathbeds, talking with deceased family members whom, they've claimed to see or they've heard, but we don't see them. Again, another version like this with my grandma. When she was close to dying, she kept yelling to get the little girl who was in the sundress to stop playing and get her out of her bedroom. And how my grandma described it, we looked back through the old family photos and she was describing my Aunt Marcy. And my Aunt Marcy had been dead for many, many years. So there is a lot of things there. And these types of apparitions are referred to as visiting spirits. And, while becoming a free spirit may be the norm for a lot of people, some don't make it all the way. They don't make it through that process of crossing over all the way. For various reasons, something might not go as planned. And they're believed to get stuck halfway between our life and the next and become what everybody refers to as a ghost. So, ghost of a departed individual occupies, whether it's a location or attaches itself to a living person or some kind of inanimate object. We might say that those places are haunted. So that's kind of where the idea is. So all because you might have an interaction with a spirit doesn't mean that you're being haunted or that the place is haunted. It could just be that a spirit is a free spirit and it's wandering around. Another one that I'll just give real quick, when my mentor Holly died, this is weird. And I still remember this. I was here on campus and I was just walking outside of Bearcat Lounge, which is located right up by the athletic department hallway. It's right next to campus ministry. I used to kind of be in charge of it. And I knew that Holly was close to passing. And like I said, I had just walked out of there. And she was a smoker. She would smoke. All of a sudden, I got a huge waft of the smell of her cigarettes in my face when I walked through the hallway there. Now, if you know, you can't smoke in the Carey building, especially if you're up there. And her cigarettes had a distinct smell. And I was like, whoa.
I was going to say, don't all cigarettes smell the same?
Not all of them. Depending on the brand and depending on what kind they were, stuff like that, they are a little different. So, but it was just amazing that all of a sudden I got that smell. And then not even a half hour or maybe an hour later did I receive the news that she had passed. Now, in the last few days that she was coherent, she would actually say, Jesus walked the earth for 3 days after he died, before he rose from the dead. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to walk the earth, and I'm going to come visit all of you to say one final goodbye before I go to the next world. And so I kind of think that smell, that was her coming through. She was coming by to check on me and to say, hey, I've passed, but I'm saying goodbye. I love you. I'll miss you. Something along those lines. And I actually called a few other people that day or the next day just to see how they were holding up. And they all had something weird happen within those few days as well after her passing. So a lot of interesting stuff that can happen there with free spirits. And just moving all around. But yeah, so getting back to this, why ghosts or why people would become ghosts and haunt people or locations or objects. Let's face it, aside from the obvious fact that it's irresistible opportunity to scare the living daylights out of people, there are a few reasons why a ghost or a spirit might haunt some kind of place or a person, anything like that. Now, a lot of experts, there's a few different ideas, so I'm going to give each of them here.
Okay.
Some believe that spirits consciously choose to stay behind in this world. And this kind of goes to the idea of the unresolved business, the problems that they didn't get to take care of during their former life. So Jacob hasn't seen this, but just like as a good little idea for people, if you've ever seen the 1990s movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze and Whoopi Goldberg, spoiler if you haven't, Patrick Swayze's character dies and his unsolved business is that he's trying to figure out who killed him and making sure that those that he cares about find out the truth and the same fate doesn't happen to them. So that's that unfinished business. Another reason may be that spirits might not properly cross over for fear of divine retribution when they're judged by God at the pearly gates. Some spirits might think, I wasn't really the best person in life, maybe I did a few things that I shouldn't have, and I fear that God is going to damn me to all hell. He's going to throw me down into the fiery pits, or, have me be tortured for all of...
Just get right into it, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. So they worry about that happening, and so they stick around to kind of prolong having to be there for Judgment Day, I guess. So instead of taking that risk, they find a second door number 2, and they choose that as, their prize to remain here in a world that they're more familiar with and lived in. Another one, and as strange it may sound here, Jake.
As if this isn't already strange.
Well,
I say that in quotes.
Yeah. This is... You're going to question this. I'm waiting for the look. But this actually happens more times than not, especially with the few investigations where we've had this where me and the investigators, we've helped spirits cross over. This is actually a big reason that we've heard multiple times on why the spirits didn't cross over and why we helped.
I'm preparing the look. I'm preparing the look I'm going to give you.
They don't know they died.
Okay, not where I was expecting that to go.
Well, and see, you're probably
I guess it makes sense that you just wake up and it's like, oh.
Well.
Hey, I'm still here, I guess. I don't know.
And see where I'm kind of going with that. You're on the right track. As if,
You woke up from like a dream or something.
Well, some people would say, how stupid would you be not to know that you're a ghost? Oh, I'm floating through walls and ceilings. Oh, look, there's my dead body just lying there on the bed or on the operating table or something. But actually, there's a few different reasons why this might be. And some of them are, somebody who dies under anesthesia on like an operating table, or maybe they died because of alcohol or drugs. They might not think that they have actually died, and instead, because they were just heavily sedated, whether, like I said, that's anesthesia, drugs, alcohol, they're just sort of thinking that they're in this daze, unable to accept or comprehend the fact that they died. Now, the other idea with this...
Now, where would they wake up, quote unquote, in terms of like... Because what did they wake up where they were and see themselves? Like, again,
Not always. Not always.
Where would they go?
They could wake up... They
could wake up in their bed. They could wake up in...
Yeah, so let's say that...
place, I guess?
Yeah, let's say, for instance, that you were on the operating table and you died.
Okay.
You could wake up and, whether you see your body or not, who knows?
That's true, yeah.
You might just think that, kind of like a dreamscape. That you're just constantly in some kind of daze or dream or somewhere. You're seeing everything go around. But you can't really interact as you would have, in a dream. But the other thing, you could wake up at home and be like, oh, how did I get home from the hospital? And then you realize, oh, crap, I never left the hospital. Hey, there's my family all dressed in black, and, they got my photo, and the dog here is sad and won't move from its bed or anything.
I mean...
Oh, crap, there comes the in-laws and the great aunts who...
I get it.
I'm just doing that for the banter.
I know, but still,
it gets a little much, I know.
We get the point after a while, yeah.
Yeah. So anyhow, that's one idea. The other reason is, or the idea is this. Some people, when they pass, if their spirit does not cross over, sometimes they don't remember who they were in this world. So there's the issue. It's not that you're in a daze. You don't know who you are. And that's why they don't know that they've died, because they don't remember dying. They don't remember their life.
Well, I've also given this considerable amount of thought, at least in my own personal beliefs. And you might give me a look.
Yeah.
When I say this, but I've always kind of considered the idea that potentially that say like my like a journal I have or something. I was really attached to that journal.
You have a lot of journals you're attached to, my friend.
Okay. choosing one specific journal, let's say, is one that I've become really, really attached to.
Yeah.
And when I die, an imprint of me, so to speak, or maybe like so to speak, like a memory.
Yeah.
Lingers.
Are
on
you?
it and attaches to it in a sense, and that
I
can
have to
create
laugh
hauntings.
because this is sounding so much like Tom Riddle's diary in Chamber of Secrets.
That was completely accidental. Quite frankly, but it sort of is like that idea, like not to the extent of like a physical apparition like Mr. Riddle that appears in Chamber of Secrets is like that, but like typical hauntings as you may have seen them or maybe people have described them are resultant of like an object that.
Well,
like,
and
has
see,
the
I'm actually going to get into that here.
Oh,
now,
so I just jumped the gun a little bit.
Yes, you did, but I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, we'll get into inanimate objects here in a second. Now, there is one last theory on why some people do not cross over. And this one's actually kind of heartbreaking in a way. Maybe it's just me because I've experienced so much death. And that is, with some people, our need to cling to them, our need of wanting to keep them here, actually does. You know, they might die, but their spirit doesn't cross over because we won't allow them to cross over.
Like a emotional chain.
Yeah, that because some people don't want to accept, they don't want to have that person die. They're not ready for them to leave yet, to leave them. It attaches that emotional chain, as you said. Yeah, that's really, there's no better way of putting that. I liked that idea. But they sense that they leave us, that they might be letting us down or disappointing us. So it may be our grief and our inability to let go that keeps them from moving on.
It's like a Christmas Carol, except you're the chain.
No, because with the Christmas Carol, that was from all of the
It's a visual metaphor.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I'm just making it clear to our listeners.
Okay, that's fair.
With Marley, all of his chains came from being a stuck-up, mean guy who didn't really do anything for anybody but himself.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
And, you know, I actually do believe that in some cases, spirits do not cross over because somebody does not let them go. That's why with a lot of times now, especially when it comes to people being in hospice care, those in hospice will recommend to the families to say at one point or another, you need to find a way of accepting to let them go, and you need to tell them it's okay. You're allowed to go.
Someone get Rick Astley on the phone, because...
Never gonna give you up. Never gonna let you
I was trying to find a
down.
segue into
Never
that,
gonna
but...
run around and desert you.
Yeah, somebody called Rick Astley, because nobody's going to give you up.
Yeah. Well, no, I think we'd want to get rid of Rick Astley then, just because you have to give them up.
Again, in regards to the metaphor.
Well, no, I get it. Though, again, this is something that I very much believe in. And again, it comes from another personal experience. When my grandpa passed in 2020, he actually turned to me. And he looked me right in the eyes and called me over to his bedside. So I'm sitting there, and he held out his hand, wanted me to grab his, and so I did. And he said, "I want you to let me go. I want you to be okay. I have to go." So really what he was all saying there was he was asking for my permission to go. He didn't ask that of my parents or of my sister or anybody. I was the only one. And as sad as it was, you know, I had to, and I didn't want to lose him. I had to give him my permission. I said, I know. It's okay. You can go. And I think that was one thing, you know, maybe in that one sense, because he was starting to get towards the end. Maybe he knew that there was this emotional chain and that I was being that chain. And so he didn't want to have me keeping him here. He wanted to go be with my grandma or something. I don't know. But those are a few of the different theories as to why. Now, getting in the case of inanimate objects, as you pretty much hit it on the ball here. where
I have a knack for these things sometimes.
yeah. Well, so one instance is like how we're all familiar with the stories of like pirates allegedly haunting their treasure that they buried or cursing it, something like that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Or toys that are said to be haunted. You know, maybe that you got a teddy bear or the creepy doll that lives in your grandma's closet.
Robert the Doll and the like.
Yeah,
if you know what that is.
yeah. You know, maybe
Or
it was
Annabelle.
it was a sense of Chucky.
Chucky.
There's a lot of these.
Yeah.
Now, not all of those were because of a spirit. I think some of those were different things. But yeah, you know, maybe these toys provided a sense of security for a child, and even in death, that child refuses to part with it. That there is pretty much some idea that this person had such a great connection to these items. It was of great importance to that person while he or she was alive. So they are refusing to part with it. So a part of their... You know this. I'm guessing that if the viewers don't know this yet, I'm a big Harry Potter nerd, so I'm just going to keep making the reference. Yeah.
Yeah, given your reference earlier.
Yeah, well, see, and I'm just thinking to myself, okay, while I explain this about how they refuse to part with it, it's kind of like the Horcruxes. You know, part of their souls is now in that object, and so they can't truly, quote-unquote, die by passing from this world to the next. They're kind of stuck here. I mean, when Lord Voldemort was pretty much defeated by Harry Potter when he was a baby, he didn't die. He just kind of became like a ghosty thing for a while. And that's because he had the Horcruxes, so he couldn't pass from that world to the next. I don't know.
It's a funny comparison to make, and a very apt comparison, but
Yeah.
just about as Harry Potter gets wrapped into this conversation.
I know, right? Now, there is one other idea here, and this actually comes from a lot of Eastern religions, and their theory was that when we pass on, it's actually a neat thing, because I've looked into this. They pretty much believe that we have a split personality, that the purest parts of our being are the parts that, like the enlightened parts, they separate from us and they move on, while the rest of us kind of stays behind. The primitive aspects of our souls, the animal, pretty much. And this actually might explain why hauntings, you know, are consisting of simple communications like banging or footsteps slamming, maybe the lights flickering, or very short messages, whether that's just a word or a few words like hello, help me. And that's because the spirits involved represent those raw instincts of who they were, the territorial side. And
I'm a tad skeptical on that one, but I see where the logic goes.
And see, with this kind of idea that the spirit involved is representing these raw instincts of their being, it may actually explain why ghosts congregate in a lot of places like prisons, hospitals, mental wards. They're subject to the mentality that is played out in nature all the time. So safety and comfort in numbers, staying with people that are like them. You know, you find that there at the prisons, at the hospitals, at the mental wards. I mean, let's face it, and the writers of this book here, I think that this is kind of a funny quote they have in here, so I'm going to read it. Think about it. If you had a choice when you died, would you want to hang around the ditch where your car went off the road, or would you rather go and eavesdrop on your favorite band or celebrities? Wouldn't you rather haunt the beaches of Hawaii instead of a hospital ER ward? Who in his or her right mind wants to stay in some creepy, boring place for all of eternity? I think that's just kind of funny. Though they actually have a good point to that. You know, if all that's in Eastern religious beliefs, you know, if all that's left is our base animal instinct, then it can't really think on its own and doesn't have real emotions. So it makes sense as to why they would continue to cling to certain places or people or objects like that. I don't know. just because those, more primitive parts of us is all that's left here. While, like I said, the better parts passed on. So I don't know if that means that if like the consciousness of the spirit is then split in two and there's now two of you. I mean, dear God, help the world if Matt Boyer splits into two. If there's two of me, dear God. But I also kind of question then, do we both get to see heaven and earth, or what's going on there? What part does our consciousness stay with? Because if for a spirit, if they didn't realize that they died or not, or if they are a free spirit, I don't know. It's just comes from all the different ideas of what happens when we die.
Yeah.
Now, there might be reasons for someone to become a ghost rather than crossing over and becoming a free spirit, but it's pretty much considered that being a ghost, whether it's by coincidence or choice, it's a tormented experience. Some ghosts, they're self-aware, and if these souls are trapped and they're confined to our world, they're gonna be, in different natural states of being. They might be depressed or sad, maybe even angry that they're kind of trapped here. I guess the best way, they're kind of like an animal in a cage. They're not in their natural habitat anymore, like a wild animal. So you're kind of imprisoned someplace, and you're invisible to everyone. So you're just kind of there watching the world continue to move around you, and everybody's just unaware that you are still there. Can't hear you, they can't see you. Yeah, who knows? But this is actually a very good thing. This is where paranormal investigators come in, because for those who do work in this field, we can actually help with a lot of things, both to people here and also to the spirit. So, many of them may just need guidance or reassurance from people here on this earth to cross over. So, let's say an investigator comes in to find out that a spirit is trapped here because of that emotional chain. Maybe the investigator can help that person here that's still living break that chain so the spirit can cross over. Or maybe it is that they're just fearing what's on the other side and they just need to be reassured.
Sorry, it sounded like you said investor for a second. For a second, maybe I misheard you, but I just wanted to clarify for the record if anyone else heard that.
The investigator?
No, you said, you said, you probably said investigator, but to me it sounded like you said investor for whatever reason, so I apologize.
If I did investigator is what I meant.
Yeah,
but,
sorry.
So, they might just need the reassurance, but some people believe that the true nature of a ghost condition is explained that it will not want to remain here, that it does want to cross over. So, one method used in helping to cross over is simply having what's known as a medium, which is a person who can communicate directly with the ghost to explain, whatever it simply needs. And, maybe that is, I'm just looking here, which Holly, I don't think she ever considered herself a full medium. I think that she said that she's more of what's known as a sensitive, which is she has some abilities of a medium, but it's not the whole way. I could be wrong. Maybe she had more than what she would originally tell me. I mean, she was able to feel things or see stuff, but I don't think it was all the time like most mediums. I don't know. It's mediums are a very interesting thing that we'll get into we'll dive into that area more in a different episode.
Okay.
But having a medium there to communicate with the ghosts, explain to it, simply needs to think of and call out to its loved ones who passed on. So, many mediums will report that ghosts will report seeing a bright light and its loved ones emerging from the light. So when that happens, the medium then just instructs the ghosts to come over, embrace their loved ones and then return with them into the light. And that helps them cross over. And once that happens, the communication between that ghost and the medium will be done. It'll cease, and usually activity associated with that haunting will stop immediately afterwards, or it'll greatly diminish. You know, you might have more than one ghost, who knows? Maybe it stays the same if there are more than one. I don't know. But not always is a medium necessary. If you have somebody who has the experience showing that you can verbally communicate with a ghost, if you've established a two-way contact kind of dialogue with them, using things like Phasmabox, using Ghostbox, using the K2 meters, which we'll dive in more to the equipment, again, another episode.
Mm-hmm.
You might be able to guide the ghost over yourself using similar dialogue and techniques that mediums will use, and we'll get into that again. I just keep saying that we're going to keep getting in more, and that's because, you know, this is one of the first few chapters where you're supposed to learn about all this and then kind of dive in to talk about, oh, here are your techniques that you can do, here are your tools, here are your stuff like that. So let's actually get into a few different kinds of ghosts or spirits, anomalies.
Anomalies? There
Yes,
you
thank
go.
you. God, can't talk tonight. And I love how they talk about the first one here. And again, I'm not reading all this page for page, but I just think this is hilarious.
Give us a quote.
Types of apparitions. Assorted ghost flavors with a free prize in each box.
Okay.
That's what they have here.
That's fun. I like that.
So the first kind of spirits, ghosts, are vaporous. And no, in this book, they are not talking about the stinky fart one of your team members just unleashed because he ate a bowl of refried beans 3 hours before the investigation.
Would it be vapor?
That is literally the first sentence here. I had to read that.
Wait, would it be vaporous or is it vaporous or vaporous? I think I've heard it said both of those ways, maybe, but I don't know.
I guess I think that's kind of like one of those words where it is the same thing. It just depends on where you're from.
Maybe, I don't know.
Just because this is all about death and weird, strange things. That I'm going to use this example. It's like the word. Is it buried or is it buried?
Oh, there you go. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Is
Sorry,
somebody buried or are they buried?
I wanted to say that because like it just seemed like, I don't know, I'm a clarifying person, I like to think, so I don't know.
So, vaporous anomalies. Again, I just can't get over that first sentence. No, we're not talking about the stinky fart one of your team members just unleashed because he ate a bowl of refried beans 3 hours before the investigation. I think I'm laughing at that so much because it reminds me of one of the investigators I've worked with. Because this totally sounds like something he would do.
You're laughing so much you had to repeat it.
I hate to call him out, but you know, if he listens into this, maybe he'll get a laugh. The great Dave Haney of Keystone State Paranormal Society over in the Chambersburg, Gettysburg, and Waynesboro area. This just sounds right up Dave's area that he would just rip one right there, and it's like, oh, great. No, that's not a ghost. That's Dave's fart. Anyhow, so getting actually back to this. Ghost sightings are frequently reported as mists or vapors.
Okay.
Now, these can either be directly observed with the naked eye by investigators, or not even just by investigators, but by anybody. Though they can also be documented in still photos or videos. Kind of the same thing goes with orbs, which, again, orbs will be a whole entire different episode. So you got to be careful to rule out a few different things. So this is where the skepticism comes in. Is this mist or vapor a spirit, a ghost, or is this something else? So it could be smoke or, burning incense. There's a few different things that it could be. So for that reason, you got to be very important to make sure no one's smoking or burning incense while you are trying to figure out what that is, because those are two dead giveaways. If you're at an investigation, really, if you're in lockdown, unlock the door, go out, have your cigarette, and then come back in. Don't be smoking inside somebody's house or wherever you're at. You know, for the most part, you're an invited guest. So be good to it. Don't be leaving smoke.
Mm.
Oh, you were raising your hand there. I didn't know if you had a question.
No, sorry, I was just
Oh, no,
stretching.
you're good. You're good. So yeah, really, you don't want anything like that during the investigation. And the other big thing that you have to realize with the vapors is, like, dusty areas. Dust is going to get kicked up from foot traffic or automobiles or whatever it may be. So you got to take that into consideration as well. Likewise, fog, or, you know, let's say that it's cold weather like it is outside right now, because
It's always cold. It's always
it's
cold.
what, probably in like the 20s right now.
It's always cold.
Yeah, but when you breathe, like how your breath can be seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you gotta be able to rule even things like that out during cold weather, because those can be mistaken for vapors. So yeah, it all depends. If there's nobody smoking, if it's not cold where you can see your breath, if you're not burning incense, and if Dave Haney doesn't rip a fat fart in a cold area or something, then you might have a paranormal mist or vapor. Now, we're going to start to get into some of the acronyms here. Though
Oh, there are acronyms? Oh, God.
yes, there are. There are a lot of acronyms actually in the paranormal field. Now,
Oh, fun.
we'll get into the technological ones like the EVPs or EMFs.
Of
when
course,
we
of
talk about
course.
technology. But there are actually two big ones here when it comes to the different kinds of paranormal spirits, ghosts. There are what's known as FBAs and then PBAs. Any idea what these might be first before I tell you?
This is the first time in my life I am ever hearing any of these terms. Please get into it.
Okay, so you got no guess.
I got no idea.
FBA, full-bodied apparition. Do you want to take a guess what PBA now stands for?
Body apparition. I can't guess what the P is.
Partial. You feel like an idiot for not knowing that now, don't you?
I wouldn't say an idiot. I would say that I may have been aware of full body apparitions. I just didn't know that there was an acronym for them.
Yeah, full-bodied apparitions and then partial-bodied. So
Okay.
with full-bodied apparitions, it isn't super... Yeah, FBA isn't like the FBI. Just because when I've used those acronyms at times, people have thought that I'm talking about like some new secret government.
Some branch of the FBI.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. They're like, what the heck is
Federal
that?
Broadcasting Association. I don't know.
I think that's the FCC you're thinking about. I know what you're doing.
For
I
the
know.
funny. For
I
the
know.
funny.
So just like the name actually implies, it's a ghost that appears to have a full body from head to toe. So it is very, very rare to see a full-bodied apparition, and it's even rare to be able to document one on film or video. So many paranormal researchers admit that they have never directly observed one. I never have. I don't know if Holly ever did. But very few investigators will say that they have. Most of the time, well, we'll get into what they might see more of rather than a full body apparition that have been captured on film or photos or seen by people. But yeah, very, very rare. I'm trying to think of what would be good. Okay, so the new Ghostbusters movie, well, it's not that new. It's kind of an older one from my freshman year of college. Ghostbusters Afterlife. When Spangler's ghost comes back at the end. Spoiler
I was going to say spoilers.
Spoiler
much.
alert. But if you haven't seen Ghostbusters Afterlife, you should have. Yeah, I mean, frankly, you guys all should have warmed up to this show by watching Ghostbusters. Just because it's freaking Ghostbusters.
Warmed up? You mean, I guess kind of had an introduction to the concept?
Yeah, kind of, yeah. So when Spangler's ghost comes back there at the end and is helping his granddaughter beat Gozer, he would be considered a full-body apparition because you can see all of him from his head all the way down to the boots. He's in his Ghostbusters uniform as a ghost. So you see him, that would be a full body apparition. Meanwhile, just let me finish up here with full body apparitions before I jump into that.
Okay.
It's considered the ultimate paranormal encounter if you do see an FBA. So if you already have, or should you ever encounter one in the future, you are very, very lucky, because anybody else who is in the paranormal field will hate you just because you got that chance and they didn't. So you should count yourself as being very fortunate. Now, getting back here, partial bodied apparitions. This is what more people have seen, and a good example of this is the ghost librarian in the first Ghostbusters, because you didn't see all of her. You saw that she was kind of floating there. You saw like the bottom of her dress, but you didn't see like her feet or anything.
Okay.
And people have been making up different versions of like the ghost librarian for years. They've been making remakes from Ghostbusters off of that. They even brought her back in the Frozen Empire. I don't know.
Okay.
So, yeah, they're only partially seen with body. Sometimes it's just a torso or a head. The legs might be cut off at the waist. Some have been seen as just a pair of disembodied legs walking.
Spooky.
Yeah. Maybe it's the magician's assistant who was accidentally sawed in half and was like.
But where's
really,
the rest of them?
Maybe it's still in the box.
Oh God.
You know, you put in the
that was...
you put in the sword or like the big square blade in the wrong area. Oopsie.
The saw?
No, well, you know, like how they put the, you know, like how
yeah, but you said sword.
it could be a saw, it could be a sword. You don't know what they're putting in that. It differs on the magician.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes it's the big razor saw thing where it's just like
a pendulum.
Yeah. It could just be that, or it could be an actual sword. Who knows? But, you know, maybe it... Yeah, if you just see a random disembodied pair of walking legs or pants or something, you know, maybe it is. Yeah, the dude died and, you know, his upper torso and head is still left in the box. Maybe he got buried in it. But his legs were free to still walk away. Because, you know, like when they open up that box to show that he's been split in half, you know, he can still move his legs and everything sometimes. Sometimes.
Keep going.
I figured. I gotta find my place here in my notes now. Here we go. So, yeah, an interesting example, again, is like seeing a ghost from the waist up moving up a flight of stairs, where the waist is at the step level. You know, odd appearance, but... this is an example of a homeowner apparently saw a ghost from the waist up moving up a flight of stairs. This odd ghostly experience didn't make sense to the homeowner at first, but after doing additional research into the history of the house, it was learned that the staircase had been rebuilt and elevated up about 2 feet from where it had been before. So the ghost was merely placed in a memory or residual energy from the time when the staircase was at that lower height, and was walking up the original set of stairs. And it reflected back to a time, yeah, when they were at a lower one. So, yeah, more people have seen the partial-bodied apparitions. In fact, I've even seen a couple. That, I actually saw, they were 3 PBAs of 3 young boys that were killed when they were killed in an old high school. Apparently the locker rooms caved in and they were killed there, and I actually saw them down at the end of the hallway. You saw like 3/4 of them. You couldn't see like the leg, but you saw from like the thigh up.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And they started coming towards, and then my sister grabbed me, but I just remember seeing them. They were down at the end of this hallway. It was creepy. And I will just say, for these FBAs or PBAs, a lot of people are going to think that they're coming up in that ghostly blue or ghostly gray. Not always. Sometimes they look just like an actual person. You know, not always are they going to have some kind of like outline hue of a color. They could look like an actual person until, you know, maybe they float through somebody else or float through something. You don't know. I'm kind of getting into some views there of the movie Poltergeist and Poltergeist 2. Because I think about Reverend Kane in Poltergeist 2, I think it was, where he just is like walking through people, but without the crappy 80s or 70s, whenever those movies came out, without the crappy CGI that made it happen. Which it's awful, and if you haven't seen that, Jake, watch it. You will cringe because of the CGI that they used for it.
Fun.
Now, another big thing, and this is what I was kind of talking about earlier, that a lot more people have seen and been able to bring onto footage, whether that's a still photo or video, and this is something that you and I have talked about before, are shadow people.
Oh, the shadow people.
Which you may have experienced back there on that back road. You know, it is nighttime. Maybe we should go see if he's out there.
No, thank you. I'm not going out there at this time of day.
Jake refuses to go out into the back road or the cemetery at night anymore because of that, and he says that if he sees that anymore, he is running for the hills.
No, I'll automatically pass away.
Oh, great. So then I get to deal with your spirit haunting me.
No,
You would haunt me because I took you out there.
No, I'd
Sure.
just move on. But anyways.
So yeah, these have been reported for many, many years, and only recently have investigators, they're really taking more of a note to classify them in their own category. So, besides for known as shadow people, they're also known as shadow men, shadow folk, shadow beings, dark entities, a lot of shadow. And these can be full or partial bodied apparitions, but they appear as a dark two-dimensional shadow, kind of like a silhouette.
Okay.
And they find that they appear to be as these dark forms in one's peripheral vision and disintegrate or move between walls and doorways when noticed. So some of the investigators that I work with out in the Gettysburg area, they've been able to see them like in a basement and kind of peering out from around the wall or something.
Oh, that's one of my worst fears.
Yeah.
I may have discussed it, but like I hate stuff that's peeking around corners.
And see, I don't remember. I think one of the photos had eyes.
Yeah.
I don't remember if you could just see right through the shadow and see the back wall, or if it had like an actual color of an eye. I would have to ask them to send me the photo again.
Oh God.
Yeah, but some do have eyes. Some are just a silhouetted shadow.
I just imagine like actual eyes. Oh, that would
Oh,
be...
not like actual eyes, but kind of like a red eye or yellow or
God,
something.
That would cause me to pass away. I just turn a corner.
Or kind of like that grayish blue or something. Yeah.
I just imagine like a white almost.
You probably wouldn't. Yeah, maybe a white. You probably wouldn't pass away from that. You'd probably wet yourself, but
No, if I saw a shadow figure with like actual like eyes, I would. My soul would.
Well,
leave
we
my body.
know that there's at least one, possibly two, on campus here because I called you the other day talking to you about that shadow
You
figure in the
did.
back hallway.
At very late at night.
Yeah, it wasn't that late.
I dramatize.
Yeah, no, it was in that back hallway, back by the theater,
Mm-hmm.
by the stage door, and the back hallway for education.
Yes.
I think it goes down towards like the swim locker rooms, and it definitely goes up to the third floor, up to the theater and music department, because I've seen it up there. That was actually where I first saw it.
Yeah.
So another thing here is phantom vehicles. And he gives me the look. I was waiting for that look.
Well, that spooky ghost, I don't go, not from regular show. If anyone gets
Oh
that
my
reference.
gosh, I remember that episode. Yeah, so not all ghosts are necessarily spirits of memories or of people or beings, but
Look out, it's Bessie coming down the way.
Hey, that was the name of my grandpa's first car. It was a brown
I have a
minivan,
knack
they
for
named it-
these things. I have intuition. I don't know.
It was kind of like a brown, like your sweatshirt that you're wearing, color minivan or something, or so he told me. But yeah, so most interesting classes of apparition sightings involve that of vehicles. And there have been countless reports of sightings of ghosts over the years taking on the form of some kind of vehicle. Phantom automobiles, airplanes, ships, even trains have been sighted. So I'm going to make another reference to Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters 2, when they are down in the old train
Oh, the train.
tunnels.
Yeah.
The train that Dan Aykroyd gets to have pass through him.
No, it's Ernie Hudson.
Or yeah, it is Ernie Hudson. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's Winston Zeddemore that happens
Winston,
to. Yeah,
right.
yeah. So that has happened. Or this kind of also goes along with the idea of like Bermuda Triangle, the ghost ships and stuff, or
Ye old pirates.
Flight 175 or something like that. I think it was that took off from New York, was supposed to be in Florida, and then it like disappeared off radar and appeared again like 37 years later down in like South America or something.
Spooky.
Yeah. Different stories. So that definitely has happened. Now, another thing with phantom vehicles is sometimes spirits are able to maneuver through vehicles. So I was actually just watching a video last night, one of the things on the Travel Channel about paranormal, where if you go out to this one area, I forget what state it is, I think Jersey. If you go out to this one place in New Jersey and call for this lady who she's died and saying that you have her baby, she will set your car alarm off. And like you could...
That sounds like Crybaby Bridge.
I don't know what it is.
It sounds very familiar.
Yeah, but like you can put your keys on the hood and still it'll go off. Or some spirits will be seen inside the vehicle and be able to control it. Again, you know, you might have your alarm go off, or something's honking your horn and you're not inside your car.
Yeah.
Or, you know, maybe a door opens or the hood of your car opens up or something and nobody's there doing that. Could be paranormal. So one of the most famous phantom vehicle sightings is actually President Lincoln's funeral train. When Lincoln died, thousands of people came to pay their respects to him, and his train slowly made its way through the U.S., and the amount of grief that people had because of this was so unprecedented for anyone that much of the route between D.C. and Springfield, Illinois, where he was buried, no longer exists. However, it's said that on the anniversary of the train's journey to Springfield, an apparition of the funeral train can still be seen steaming across the countryside, retracing the route that it followed before the tracks were torn up.
Huh.
Yeah.
Alright.
Yeah. Now, so those are your different versions, or at least some of them, the main ones. Let's get into classes of hauntings.
Oh gosh.
And funny enough, the book says not a school for ghosts. They like adding in these little things. No, these actually go into a little bit of what you were saying. So yeah, there's like the classification of energy level, which we'll talk about at a different time.
Okay.
But there's a few different kinds of hauntings. So there are your intelligent hauntings, Jake. So most people think of when they've heard the word haunt, you know, it's an intelligent haunting. It's some kind of paranormal activity in a location that appears to be self-aware. So the energy is aware of its environment and those within it. So it's making its presence known. The person with psychic abilities may communicate and converse with the spirit directly. Now, while ghosts or ghosts associated with intelligent hauntings might be aware of wherever they're at or the people within it, they may not always be aware that they've died. So this kind of goes back again, you know, this kind of goes like the Patrick Swayze thing at first. Oh, you know, I'm in my office, but no one sees me.
Yeah.
You know, what's going on? Is everybody playing a, hey, he's invisible day, or what's going on?
Yeah.
Residual haunting, sometimes known as place memory. So a residual haunt, best described kind of like a recording of an event in time that kind of like plays back.
I told you about what could have been considered a residual haunting at one point, I think, and you utterly dismissed me. It was a Gettysburg thing or something. Allegedly, some guys dressed in reenactment uniform went down into a place, and then it opened up to a scene that looked like it would be from the war. Somebody, one of the nurses from the scene, saw them as the doors closed, and they opened up and nothing was there. I don't know if that's the same thing, but that sounds like the same thing. So I'm gonna make that connection.
Yeah. So pretty much, yeah, what it is, as you were kind of alluding to there, is the residual haunt not aware of its condition or its environment. There's nothing to interact here any more than you could interact with like a TV show or a movie. So vast majority of hauntings appear to be consistent with a residual imprint of the past. Some do kind of have like a awareness to some level, but some don't. It's kind of tricky because some of them will say, kind of like how I was talking about with Kane Manor, the bar. Okay, they knew that we were there, but they still were. The waitress was under the impression that, oh, all the people are still here. I have to get back to serving. Because you were laughing about the ghosts getting drunk.
Right, yeah.
They're getting tipsy. So, hypothetical example of this, again, let's say somebody passed on in their house, then every day for the last 20 years of, this person's daily routine concluded with coming home from work, opening and closing the door, and then walking upstairs. Well, then, let's say after this person died, the new people, they start reporting that they continue to hear the front door opening, close, and then footsteps walking upstairs. So it's people that are still kind of like stuck in their ways with that. And it's because of the imprint that they have on that location where that person lived.
Yeah.
Another reason a location might acquire a residual haunt is because of a traumatic event occurring there. So untimely deaths, maybe a violent murder, as you said, battles from past wars, because Gettysburg, a lot of people see the residual haunts of the battle still going on, or, people who lived around there. People will talk all the time about the Jenny Wade house, though her name's not actually Jenny. It's Ginny.
The red thread.
I knew you were going to bring that up.
The red thread.
I knew you were going to bring that up. But this is a different series, Jacob. This is the sub-series. No.
The red thread connects everywhere,
Jenny
Boyer.
from Benny. No.
The red thread connects
Her
everywhere.
actual name was Ginny, but everybody thinks that it's Jenny.
It's yeah.
And that's actually been proven. They actually have records that her name was Ginny. It's not that, a spirit told me that her name was actually Emma. It wasn't Jenny. So yeah, all these things are believed to create very strong residual imprints. So the charged emotion of such a tragic event or very strong thing that happened there, it might be so intense that the memory of that event becomes fixated at that location and just continues to kind of be like a repeat. Again, Lincoln's Train would be described as a residual haunt or a place memory.
Yeah.
Now, one of the big ones, and this is kind of a fun thing for me, poltergeist hauntings.
Okay.
Poltergeists are a different kind of spirit folks. So these are active hauntings defined by movement of physical objects by unseen forces. So this could be you watching a door open and close on its own might, or seeing maybe a glass be thrown across the room and shattering on the floor right past you. Or, maybe you see a chair in a classroom just floating above all the desks or something. I don't know. So there's a lot of thought regarding the poltergeist activity. Now, some will say that the physical manifestations are the work of ghosts or spirits. Now, they lack a physical body, which means the spiritual entity would need to expend a tremendous amount of energy to move a physical object. And that would explain in part why poltergeist activity is so rare. Now, the other explanation is that it attributes such a manifestation not to the work of ghosts, but rather to the living. And it's believed that there's a good deal of academic research to support this idea, that physical manifestations might be caused by a living subject in the vicinity, and this subject is pretty much a human poltergeist agent, or HAP, Probably should be HPA, but it's called HAP for some reason.
Hap.
Yeah. But it's really known in the field of parapsychology as HAP. I don't know why, so don't ask me.
Hap. It's fun to say.
Yeah, maybe.
Hap.
But as fun as it might be to say, the HAP, the human poltergeist agent, is completely unaware that they are responsible for these manifestations. And in most cases, it's just as frightened, maybe amused, as other people witnessing these movements of objects or unseen forces. So the reason for the activity, it's not entirely agreed upon, but an overwhelming majority of poltergeist cases involve kids, especially like teenage girls. You know, when I first was told that, I kind of thought of The Crucible. Did you ever read The Crucible back in...
Nope.
Okay. Pretty much Salem witch trials, and a bunch of young teenage girls were the reason why so many people were convicted of being witches and died, because they were saying that all this stuff was happening to them, and it was because they were under witchcraft.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty much the same idea here.
I mean, I've heard that. I just, like, I don't think I've heard of... Or I've heard of The Crucible, but I've never, like, seen it. Or
read it?
I know the... Yeah, I never read it. Thank you.
Yeah. So some unfortunate instances, the HAP has been the victim of abuse, which might further the intensity of involuntary outbursts of psychic energy. Involuntary, sorry, yep, I read that wrong.
No, you're fine.
Also known as PSI, which is pronounced Psy, like the guy from South Korea with Gangnam Style.
Or psychology.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of things like that that can happen. But poltergeists, they're the ones that are mainly actually moving things, and you just see the items moving. Doors opening, closing, things floating around, that kind of stuff. Now there's also the transistent hauntings, and in most ghost hauntings, the entities are believed to be both earthbound and tied to a specific location. So like these are the ones that they're here on Earth and they can't just go wherever they want. They're stuck with that location. So this could be, like I said, a house that they lived in, or many well-known hauntings of theaters, believed to be caused by ghosts of performers who once graced. We were just a few weeks ago down at the Palace Theater, and they're talking about, how there was a dude that was in the balcony there way before any guests would be allowed in, and then he just disappeared.
Yep.
So, it could be somebody who enjoyed going to the theater or people that were on the stage. And it's the passion felt by the people who lived or worked in these places that was so strong that, once again, it binds them there from not just in life but also to death. So location-specific hauntings are very, very common. I mean, let's face it. Here at St. Vincent, we have the Faceless Monk. We have Brother Myolus.
The red thread.
Yeah.
Red thread.
I am bringing in the red thread here because of, hey, this is a place where you find a bunch of monks because it's St. Vincent Archabbey.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. Or, spirits of students who have died. St. Vincent College, and we used to have a preparatory school. There used to be an orphanage here. You might encounter Native Americans because Latrobe and St. Vincent was built on Native American land, where there used to be huge settlements. Katanning, you got the Katanning Trail, for God's sake. So, yeah. Now, another possibility known as the transient haunting, some researchers would also refer to as drop-in hauntings. And this is an earthbound ghost, but one that's not bound to a single location. And they're able to kind of just roam almost anywhere on Earth's surface. And these entities are believed to be responsible for many on and off or inconsistent hauntings. So they might happen to be passing through the area and see something or someone that sparks their interest. And so they might take residence wherever that may be, whether that's latching themselves onto a person or, an inanimate object or a location for a little bit of time. And it could go anywhere from minutes to several months or, who knows, it might just decide to be with it all together. Another big thing with that is, and we'll talk a little bit about this more when it gets into when we get into all kinds of different equipment, would be table tipping, where a spirit would take over the table. And, you know, maybe they like working with the investigators and people, so they're just going to live in the table. They become they become the spirit that you are interacting through. And why I give that instance is the guys over there at Keystone State.
Mm-hmm.
They have a table, and her name is Emma. She is a spirit that's taken over this table. She's not the table spirit, like she's not the spirit of this table, but she's a spirit that has now taken over and is embodied within the table. And so she's kind of like now the moderator or connector between this world and being able to bring other spirits into the table to be able to communicate through that. So there's a lot more that I could really dive down into, but we're already at over an hour talking about this stuff.
I had to imagine thinking about that.
Yeah. So I don't want to take up too much time, but those are pretty much your overall big different forms of spirits, of ghosts, of hauntings.
The main players.
Yeah, so we'll talk a whole lot more. And like I said, if you guys really want to get in depth, direct message me, put it in the comments, email, who knows.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Yeah, well, that goes at the end of all of our things. My message of, you know, hit the bell button and stuff. But yeah, definitely we could get a whole lot more in depth. I'm not going to, because we're just trying to scratch the surface here for everybody, get them a basic view.
Scratch the surface, he says, an hour in.
Hey, there's a lot to scratch. It's a big surface.
Okay.
So, any questions that you have with any of the different things? You were talking about the classifications of energy level. I kind of said we'll hit that up.
Yeah, we'll hit that later.
That'll come kind of more when we talk about EVPs and
fair
EMFs.
enough. I think I have a good idea, so I don't really have any questions.
Yeah. Okay.
I just have comments.
What are your comments?
Oh, sorry, not now. Just comments that I've made.
You just meant throughout the episode.
From what I've said. Yeah.
Would read again, 5 stars.
What?
You've never seen like that stuff, like with a book review or like the review after being at a place. Loved staying here, 5 stars. Like the reviews that you would find on Google or something from people.
I know what those are. I don't know.
I'm making like that would be your comment after me giving all this.
5 stars.
Good talk. 5 stars.
Good talk.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No. That came out of nowhere. I was not
know.
prepared for that.
I know. You're never prepared for some of the stuff that I come up with. You weren't prepared for the Heaven's Gate comment.
Well, hopefully for obvious reasons. But that's besides the point.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. We are going to end it there with diving into the paranormal. We will be back again in the future to bring you guys a little bit more of an in-depth look into how to be a paranormal investigator, some of the things you need to know if you are on a paranormal investigation, different stuff, really diving in for, ghost hunting and working with spirit. So we also will be back with more episodes of your regular programming.
Back to your regularly scheduled programming.
Of us going out and exploring some of these local legends and haunts and everything.
If by exploring you mean standing stationary in front of said locations.
Yes. You know what? Maybe we will go mobile for 1 or 2 of them.
You know what? We should.
We should.
And it's something that I've suggested at one point, I think. Maybe. I don't know.
I don't remember you did, but we will actually do that with a few of them, I think.
All right.
Maybe,
we'll plan for that.
Yeah, maybe the next episode.
Maybe Blue Mist Road.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. Yeah. So.
And the... Well, we'll see.
Yeah. We don't want to give all of them away.
No spoilers.
But yeah. But Blue Mist Road, I know we are planning to do in a little bit. So yeah, we'll walk down the road and do that one. So, but all right, guys, we are gonna end it there. So tune in next week to Unearthing the Unknown, as Jake and I will be bringing you something. We don't know yet what.
It'll be something.
If it's either gonna be another dive into this kind of stuff, or if we're gonna be out exploring this kind of stuff. But stay tuned for that. Until then, we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.
Hey there, listeners. I'm Matt Boyer, station manager of WSVC Radio. If you like what you're listening to, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell button to be notified with all of our updates. Every day, one of our shows will be releasing a new episode. Stick around and tune in.